Economists are predicting a recession is coming, maybe in 2019. More economists predict 2020, and some say it'll happen in 2021. And for those of you who lived through the 2008 housing crash, the idea of a recession and its effect on the housing market can be a very scary thing. So what people want to know is, will a recession cause a crash in the Seattle housing market? Hi, I'm Bob.Woolverton. I'm with Pure Real Estate in Bellevue, Washington. Here on YouTube, I'm known as your Northwest Realty Advisor. When we come back in 8 seconds, I'll explain what history has taught us about recessions and its effect on the housing market. And I'll show you why you shouldn't let negative media headlines cause you to panic about the housing market. So stick around. Last week, the National Association for Business Economics released their February 2019 Economic Policy Survey. Their survey revealed that a majority of the panel believe an economic slowdown is in the near future. While only 10% of panelists expect a recession in 2019, 42% say a recession will happen in 2020, and 25% expect one in 2021. Their findings coincide with 3 previous surveys calling for a slowdown sometime in the next 2 years. The Pulsenomics Survey of Market Analysts, the Wall Street Journal Survey of Economists, and the Duke University Survey of American CFOs. That raises the question, will the real estate market be impacted like it was during the last recession in 2008? A recession does not equal a housing crisis. According to the dictionary definition, a recession is a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced, generally identified by a fall in GDP in 2 consecutive quarters. During the last recession, home prices fell dramatically because it was the housing collapse that caused the recession. However, if we look at the previous 4 recessions that were caused by a drop in the GDP, we can see that home values weren't negatively impacted. January 1980 to July 1980, home values rose 4.5%. And that's on a national level. July 1981 to November of 1982, home values rose 1.9%. In July 1990 to March of 1991, home values fell less than 1%. In March 2001 to November of 2001, home values rose 4.8%. Now, most experts agree with Ralph McLaughlin, CoreLogic's deputy chief economist, who recently explained, there's no reason to panic right now. Even if we may be headed for a recession, we're seeing a cooling of the housing market, but nothing that indicates a crash. The housing market is just normalizing. Inventory is starting to increase and home prices are finally stabilizing. This is a good thing for both buyers and sellers as we move forward. This is exactly what I've talked about before in previous market updates. Media headlines get people all excited with headlines stating things like, home price hikes are in a downward spiral, when in reality, the rate of appreciation is slowing to more normal rates. When appreciation was 12 to 15%, people were panicking because prices were soaring so high and people were afraid they weren't going to be able to afford a home. Now that our local appreciation rates have slowed to somewhere near 5%, people are panicking the market's going to crash. 5% appreciation is still ahead of the national average and still higher than the historic norms. So while we're talking about headlines, let's look at this one. Here's a screenshot from MarketWatch. Cash out mortgage refis are back. Will homes become ATMs again? This headline refers to the housing collapse of 2008 when people were refinancing their homes and using that money to buy depreciating assets like cars, jet skis, boats, and whatever. And yes, currently the percentage of mortgages with refinancing is comparatively high. It's at 81%, approaching the pre-collapse number of 89%. So when people say that cash out refinances are going back to the numbers from a decade ago, they're not wrong in saying that, but they're not giving you the whole picture. If you go further into the report from Freddie Mac, what you'll see is the amount of equity cashed out is nowhere near it was in 2006. Through 3 quarters of 2018, it's $38 billion, and that sounds like a lot of money, and there's no question about that. We'll probably end 2018 somewhere around $50 billion to $52 billion in equity cashed out. But when we take a look at 2006, when $321 billion was cashed out, we're currently talking about 1/6 of what was done then. And the amount that is cashed out now, outside of the housing crash years where there was no equity to pull out, we're lower than we were in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. So what winds up taking place is, though the percentage is up, people are now taking money out of their house. They're not wasting it on depreciating assets. They're not, buying jet skis or a new car or going on a lavish vacation. Now they're spending their money correctly. They're pulling money out of their house, maybe to help support their children with their college courses, pulling money out of their house to get seed capital for a business they wanted to start. Those are good reasons, like paying credit card debt. Those are good reasons to use your equity. And that's what people are doing now. It's not the same as 2008, though the headline made it seem that way. Let's look at this headline, another screenshot from Yahoo Finance. Consumer debt hits $4 trillion. And what aggravated me the most about this Yahoo Finance article was the first line. Americans are diving deeper and deeper into the red. Although the title is correct, consumer debt did hit $4 trillion. That line is just an outright lie. If we take a look, not at the total amount of debt, because of course that's going to go up. They don't adjust it for inflation. As the population gets bigger, more people take on debt. As the economy gets better, more people buy a new car or move up to a bigger house. So of course, debt is going to go up. But what we need to do is look at that same report that showed the $4 trillion in debt and look at what is the household debt service ratio for mortgages as a percentage of disposable personal income. Meaning, how much is the debt compared to how much money you make? That's the really important thing, not the total amount of debt, but what each family is paying in regards to how much money they're making. Although $4 trillion is an all-time high, the 4.24% of their total disposable income they're paying now is at a 40-year low. It's lower today than it was in 1980 and every year since 1980. And I'm talking about at least a 40-year low, because prior to 1980, they didn't even record those numbers. So at $4 trillion, the headline is like, oh my God, we're in a mess. If you go through the report and find out we're at the lowest ratio per disposable personal income, we're in phenomenal shape right now. Not bad shape, phenomenal shape. It's the best it's been in 40 years. I know we're running long on this video, but I have to address one more headline that was a local headline. Here's the headline I saw from Como News. Seattle home price hikes continue downward spiral, says new report. I read that and I thought to myself, price hikes usually mean prices are going up. So how can hikes be a downward spiral? Then you read the first line of the article. Home price increases are continuing to plummet in the Seattle area as the city's once smoking hot real estate market cools down to a more glacial pace. Now, one thing media experts know is that negative headlines get more clicks than positive headlines. And this is right in line with what I said last month in my market report. You have to read the article, not just the headline, to truly understand what is going on. You can't just rely on the headlines. And sometimes, as we saw in the two previous articles we just covered, perhaps the story itself doesn't give you the entire picture. When we read further into this article, it says the most recent S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller 20 City Home Price Index, released Tuesday, shows that home value appreciation in Seattle now ranks 11th in the nation, with an average increase of 5.1% over the same time last year. The next paragraph continues, that's still higher than the average national increase of 4.2%, but it's down considerably from the period from late 2016 to spring 2018, when Seattle home price increases were the highest in the nation, skyrocketing upward at an average year-over-year rate of 12 to 13%. Oh my God, are you kidding me? When appreciation was at 12 and 13%, the headlines complained about how housing prices were out of control and soon no one would be able to afford a home, or it was causing a housing bubble that's going to burst. Now the headlines are, downward spiral, continue to plummet, warning, 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 appreciation is slowed to only 5.1%, even though that's still higher than the 4.2% 20-city average and the historic national average of 3.6%. Here's the S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller 20 City Home Price Index graph. Yep, the average was 4.2%, and locally, we're at 5.1%. Our local headlines should be celebrating, yay, we're getting back to a more normal market, and we still have strong job growth in our region, and we're still higher than the 20-city average. Our real estate market is healthy and returning to normal. But headlines like that don't get clicks. So the moral of the story is, you've got to read the article. When I read this Como headline, it caused me to pause and wonder, what are they saying? Hikes and downward spiral? How does that work? And I watch our local real estate market every day. This is just proof positive. You can't rely on the headlines alone. You've got to read the article and understand the bigger economic picture to really know what's going on. Bottom line, if there is a recession or an economic slowdown in our near future, and economists say there will be, remember, a recession is not a collapse in the housing market. There is no need for fear to set in. Our housing market will not be the cause of the next recession. Safeguards have been put into place to safeguard us from risky and greedy lending practices that caused the housing collapse in 2008. And as history has shown, during recessions that are created by a reduction in the GDP, the housing market has fared just fine. So don't let talk of a recession, and more specifically headlines about a recession, don't let them create fear in your mind about a housing market collapse. I hope you found value in today's video. If you did, click that subscribe button and click that reminder bell. That reminder bell makes sure you get notified when I post new videos. If you like today's video, give it a thumbs up. That's feedback to me that I'm giving you information of value. And last but not least, please share this link with someone you know who can benefit from the information on this YouTube channel. You can find my email address and telephone number in the video description below. Call me or email me. I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to represent you in your next real estate transaction. I'm Bob.Woolverton. I'm with Pure Real Estate in Bellevue, Washington. Here on YouTube, I'm known as your Northwest Realty Advisor. Every week, I post new videos about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, as well as some home tours and listing videos. I'll see you next week.